Hi guys, welcome to chapter 6 of Research Methods in Psychology, Psych290. This chapter is about the difference between subjects and within subjects research, something that you know already from your statistics class, but we'll go into a little more detail and talk about it a little bit more in terms of how you would do these things and what would be the considerations when you're actually trying to decide to do one or the other. All right, so some of the simple cases, what we'll do is just talk about one independent variable with two levels to start with. We can expand on that in the next chapter, but just to give you the idea of the difference between the two. Between subjects, again, if we have one independent variable with two levels, you get your sample of participants, and then you randomly assign them to one level of the independent variable or the other. Okay, so in this particular case, every participant is only going to get one level of the independent variable. All right. We contrast that with within subjects or repeated measures. With repeated measures or with repeated measures or within subjects research, you have your pool of participants again, but in this particular case, everyone gets both levels of the independent variable. All right, so what I'll do is just give you one example that I have listed in the PowerPoints. Let's take the example of social facilitation. Okay, social facilitation, when it happens, is basically if your performance increases by being watched by somebody, who's in an audience, for example. Okay, so the two levels of the independent variable would be either watched by 0 people or 2 people. Again, making it real simple. Independent variable is the number of people that are watching you do the task, watching the participant do the task. Okay, so let's take something that you're familiar with. All right, let's go with the remote associates task as your dependent variable. Okay, so in a between subject situation, I would have 0 people watching the participant, and that would be randomly determined, or we would have that person being watched by 2 people, and that would be randomly determined. And again, you would be doing the remote associates task. If social facilitation occurs, what we hypothesize is that the group of participants that were watched by 2 people will perform better than those that are watched by 0 people. Again, the idea of facilitation, that is, and again, social facilitation, that you would do better because there is somebody watching you. Okay, so how would that work as within subjects? Within subjects would mean that every participant would be watched by 0 people while you do the remote associates task, and also you would be watched by 2 people. So you would get both levels of the independent variable. You'd be watched one time that you do the remote associates test with 0 people, another time with 2 people watching you. Okay, so that's the big difference. All right, so what are some of the issues that are going on here? Okay, so basically with between subjects, the big issue is that you want to have the 2 groups initially equivalent as best you can. So what does that mean? How do we do that? We do what I just mentioned, random assignment into groups. Okay, it's not foolproof, but it's our best defense to get the idea that both groups will be initially equivalent. That is, if there is any change in the dependent variable after we do the manipulation, we can attribute that to the independent variable that we used. All right. So the other issue going on between subjects is what you might want to do is what's known as matching. So if you are really not sure that the groups are going to be initially equivalent, even with random assignment, if you pick a variable that you think is going to be important in terms of the task that you use, you want to measure that first, and then take each pair of people that score the highest on that variable, and then randomly assign them to one group or the other. So the example that they use in the book is the idea of a vocabulary test to test the children in the study beforehand because of a comprehension test. So to get there, you test everybody's vocabulary level that is going to be in your sample. And the first 2 highest people, say, again, arbitrarily, the numbers are, scores are 20 and 19. Those are the 2 highest scores. The participant with 20 and the participant with 19 are paired, and then you randomly assign each one of those to one group or the other. So maybe the one with 20 gets randomly assigned into the group with 0 participants watching you, or then the one with 19 gets the 2 people watching them. Okay, the next pair of high scores. Maybe somebody had an 18, another person had a 17. Randomly assign those 2 people to one group or the other, and go down the list. Okay, the reason for doing matching is that it can decrease within group variability, and that's really what we want to do overall. Okay, so the problems with matching, or at least the considerations with matching, are why would you want to do it? You have to have a good reason. Okay, so you just don't want to pick some variable that you think might be important. You have to have a good reason for matching it. Secondly, it is effortful. It does take another step in the process. You have to collect another set of data, basically, in terms of the matching variable, and then decide, if that's worth the effort to put into it. Okay. Another issue with matching is, how many things do you want to match? Okay. Yeah, you could do one variable. Do you want to do a second one, a third one? It certainly becomes unwieldy if you try to do too many. All right. And the last issue is, if you do pick something that you want to match on, how do you measure it? Okay, so say we want to use a vocabulary level, a matching variable. Well, what vocabulary tests are you going to use to do that? Okay, there's a number of them out there. How are you going to use it? Okay, all right, so the other thing about between subjects that I'm sure you're aware of, you already have an exposure to between subjects, the generation effect lab that we did. Okay, that was between subjects. So again, you were randomly assigned into either the read-only group or the generate group. So again, everybody in that lab either did the read-only or the generate condition. So that's what makes it between subjects. Okay. The other example I gave you in the book that I can briefly mention is context effects. So what we can do in that particular case to see if some context or some information that's given beforehand helps you recall a word list. Okay, so let's say we have 2 groups and we give them the context of red, that is the color red, and we say all these words in the word list can be used in a phrase with the word red. So like red blank would be the word that you can use. Or we could, in the other condition, the control condition, we just say all these words are less than 6 letters. Okay, so that really doesn't give you a whole lot of information. Okay, so then we give you the word list. Okay, we randomly assign you into one of those 2 groups or another, the control condition or the context condition. So then you get these list of words. And the list of words could be things like bull, alert, signal, light, robin. Okay, so all these words, may seem, at least initially, as just being, random words, but if you know that it can be preceded by the word red, then it's going to be easier for you to remember. Okay, so that's what we're talking about in terms of context effects. So you hear the word red and you think, you see the word bird in bull, and you say, oh, red bull. You see the word robin, you say red robin. You see the word alert, you say, oh, red alert. Okay, so it gives you context. It gives you a place to, in your memory, to encode that information. Okay, so, not too surprisingly, if you do get the context beforehand, then you actually do remember the words better. All right, so let's talk about the difference between that and within subjects. Okay, within subjects, again, what happens is you have all your participants and they get both levels of the independent variable. So it would be like if we did do the generation effect as a within subjects situation. Then everybody in the class would have done the read condition and then gotten your the word recall checked. Okay, then you would have done it as the generate condition. Okay, and then you would have done the word list again. All right, so we'll talk about this in a second, but I think you can already start thinking, what is the problem with that? You already have the one word list once, and now you're going to get it again, even though you have a different level of the independent variable. So that's going to be an issue. That's why we don't always do within subjects research. All right, but what if it's a different task? Like the example in the book is the mural liar illusion. Okay, If you have the mirror-liar illusion, again, the lines with the fins in or the fins out. With the fins in, the line looks longer than if the fins are pointing outward. Okay, so if you don't get any feedback, okay, then you can't actually do that as a within subjects experiment. Okay, and the independent variable that they used was the angle of orientation, whether it was horizontal or vertical or 45 degrees. So again, now we've got 3 levels of the independent variable. All right, so we can do within subjects. Okay, again, if it's social facilitation, if the task was something like a maze task and you use different mazes, then you could have people, again, do it as a within subjects variable. Then you have 2 people watching you or 0 people watching you. But you do each level. Every participant does each level of the independent variable. Okay, that's a good thing, right? Okay, if you can get away with it. Okay, the reason it's a good thing is now you are your own, each participant is their own control, basically. Okay, so you don't have to worry about initial equivalence of the groups, okay, because each person is essentially serving as their own control. All right. The other thing that this does is it does help reduce type 2 error. Okay, if you are using a within subjects approach or repeated measures approach, then there's going to be less within group variability, excuse me. So again, if you remember your stat, an F ratio, the idea of ratio, the between group variability is on the numerator, the within group variability is in the denominator. So again, the smaller the within group variable is, the bigger the F value is going to be. Okay, and if that's the case, you will be less likely to have a type 2 error. So, if there's a real difference, okay, you're going to be more likely to see that there is a real difference. Type 2 error, which could occur with between subjects, is you would have a larger within subject, within group variability, in which case then your F value is going to be smaller, and you could actually be saying, no, there's not an effect, when there actually is, because your F value is lower than it could be because of the within group variability. All right, so those are the major issues between within groups and between subjects and within subjects or repeated measures research. That's going to be the first go round here. And talking about matching, I said it was important too. So what I'll do is in the second segment of this talk about why you can't do within subjects sometimes, and why where we can itemize all the different carryover effects, as they're called, which could be a problem with within subjects or repeated measures research. Okay, so I'm enjoying the sunny day, although it's a little cool out, but I'll get to part 2 in a little while. Okay, thanks guys. Take care. Miss you.